Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I'm joining the ranks of everybody else on YouTube, and I'm going to be talking about the latest film in the DCEU. It's The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is ultimately about a band of supervillains that are forced to team up when Amanda Wallace sends them on a dangerous mission to find the details of an elusive project called Project Starfish. And they are subsequently to destroy it, no question asked. If they disobey, just like the first one, she'll blow their heads to smithereens. Now, I'm one of the few people that didn't actually hate on the first movie. I think it's mostly a tacky but fun film at the end of the day, and one that I actually really liked the characters and tone. That film just hit a massive problem when it came down to the writing because the story was weak, the villains were disposable, their motivations were unclear, and the stinking floating ring of trash in the sky, or whatever that was an empty spectacle that wasted everybody's time. I get it. It was a mess, and it was far from perfect, but I did like those characters, and I'm sad to see most of them gone in this one, to be honest. Especially Will Smith, who carried that first film with his charisma. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to watch this film, directed by none other than James Gunn himself, who was always the perfect choice to direct this movie. When I saw the original, I could tell that they were basing a lot of the tone and feel of it to sort of head up against Guardians of the Galaxy as the weird team-up film of unlikely heroes. So when I saw that he directed, I was unsurprised. When the film first began, I honestly thought to myself, this film feels oddly like the previous film, just more violent, but as the film progressed, there was a shift in tone to where it really started to feel like it fit its own thing. And once that tonal shift occurred, that's when I really started getting into the movie a little bit more, getting into the characters a little bit more, and I found myself really invested in the story, which was clearly a lot stronger than the previous one. Also, I loved the humor in this film, which was just chock full of sarcasm, and it's that humor that I feel like makes or breaks these characters for the audience. None of them really have that much depth independently, so it's harder to care about them because of their history, but you can really love them based on how they act in the moment, as well as their chemistry with one another. I gotta say, James Gunn is a visionary. He really is. He gave this film much more of a voice, a soul, and an identity than the first ever had, and it's easy to see in comparison which one is more superior. No, I'm not automatically gonna dog on the original since I do like the simplicity of that film, but there's just layers upon layers of this film that are actually good that are hard to outright ignore. But if you start looking at the negatives here, one thing is for certain, it is a little bit messy. I mean, in the beginning of the film, our antiheroes get their mission, which serves as a perfectly fine inciting incident for the narrative. And there's a lot of obstacles before they get there. And I feel like it's expanded so much at each of these obstacles that the film could have almost been a miniseries of sorts, because each obstacle that they run into seems to have its own beginning, middle, and end, or in other words, its own 3-act structure. And that happens a few times in this movie. And I feel like you start to feel the length here because of that. Also, like I sort of touched base with, these characters don't have a ton of background character development. So a lot of what you watch here is stuff found on the surface. So sometimes I don't fully understand why all of these characters are needed in all of these scenes. Here and there I feel like they're all contributing and it's great, but sometimes I feel like all of them aren't always needed. So a lot of times you'll have characters on screen that'll just kind of be filling space. I don't know, it's not a huge complaint, but for me it is noticeable. Let's go ahead and break down my final score. From an unbiased technical perspective, this is a very well-made film. The visuals are top-notch, as is the cinematography, editing, and even use of music. James Gunn is a visionary. I just didn't think the pacing was always as great as it could have been. So this score is 82%. My bias is a little bit higher because it's mostly a film that's trying to entertain you above all else, and I think that they did a good job with that. This score is 88%. When we average out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 85%. 85 out of 100 possible stars, or an A- letter grade. Guys, have you seen Suicide Squad yet? If you have, what are your thoughts on it, and how do you compare it to the previous one? Let me know. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come up with my next review. And until then, peace! Out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He